Well, hello my friends, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Patty. I go by Pattymac Makes everywhere online, and in today's video I wanted to have a chat about our friend the Rail Fence Quilt Unit and how to make it into a Rail Fence Quilt Block, and from there a Rail Fence quilt pattern. So at first glance, it's really easy to dismiss this particular unit and block as something like just so overly simple. It's like, why bother making that? And I will tell you something. This particular pattern is so good to work on because it will help you get your 1/4 inch seam allowance on the money. That is a big struggle. It's a struggle for people all throughout their quilting because it's just not an easy thing to get right. And it will also help you to work on sewing really nice straight lines. Again, these things sound so simple and so basic, and it really takes the practice to build the skill. So this is a great skill builder, and I'll be honest with you, it's fun to make. Let's talk about why this is so cool. So it's going to help you work on that 1/4 inch seam accuracy, which will just help you in your quilting journey here forward, because everything relies on getting that 1/4 inch seam just right. This particular version is 3 strips in 1 unit, and let's just look at a unit. Here's what the individual unit looks like. So in quilting, what we do is we make units of construction, and then putting units together, we create a block. So this is the block, this is the unit. And the way that we determine the size of our unit, or this square, is by how many strips we put together. So it's 2, 4, 6. So we know it's 6. And in quilting, you always add the 1/2 inch, generally speaking, for your seam allowance, so that the finished size of this in the project would be a 6-inch block. This pattern is so good because, like I mentioned, it helps you to really get real on getting that 1/4 inch seam just right. It will help you with accurate pressing so that you have nice straight lines. It will help you with your sewing straight lines over long strips, because a jelly roll strip is a full width of fabric, and it can be very tricky to not only maintain your seam allowance but to have accurate straight sewing. Trust me. So anyway, you have these 3, and we'll just bring this other one in. And so you can do things like rotating them this way. And when you do the rotation, what happens is you don't have to really line anything up. So the really nice thing about this is it is minimal matching of seams. Now as it goes together, we'll want to certainly match this. Let's talk about the construction of our units. And like I mentioned, we're working with what we call strip sets. And what that means is you take these pre-cut strips, or strips that you cut yourself, and we put them together into a set. So this one is 3. So this is a strip set of 3, just like this. And then what you do is you take your strip set that you've sewn in just 2 long seams, and then you do something that we call sub-cutting, which means we take this and then we cut it down. And on the back, you want to make sure that you've got nice, neat seams. So you can see it's very neatly pressed. Everything is going the same direction. Everything is really nice and flat, and that is like super important. Of course, that's super important in all of your quilting. So this is just a really good skill builder. So we know that for this one, it's going to be 6-inch blocks because it's 3 across. Let me show you what one looks like that is 8.5 inches. Here's a completed block, and I put 4 strips together, and so this is 2, 4, 6, 8. So these are 8-inch blocks, and we put them together into this one. So this winds up being a 16-inch finished block. This one's a 12. So you can see the size difference is pretty big. So 12-inch block, this is a pretty standard size, but it's always fun to go a little bit larger, because if you go a little bit larger, you can finish a project a lot more quickly. And also with something like this, you could put like a sash around it, and this makes a beautiful pillow. So you could really enjoy putting this into a pillow project. But again, I made my strip sets, and I knew because I put 4 together that I would cut these to 8.5-inch units and then put them all together into the finished block. So let's talk about the steps to making our rail fence quilt pattern. The first thing that you're going to want to do is pick the size that you want to go with. So we're going to keep it simple. We're going to say we want to make 6.5-inch units, and so we know we want to put 3 strips together. And now that you know you need 3 strips, now you can start thinking about what fabric you want to use. And 3 is really a manageable place to start with something like this. So in this case, I went with a light, medium, and dark. And I also added the blue to play off the color as well. So this is a really great way for you to dig in and play with value in the light or dark aspect of your fabrics. And it's also a great way to get in and play with your color theory. So you can get your color wheel out and pick 3 colors that work well together as based on the color wheel and what it tells you. So then you're going to pick your pattern variation. I'm somebody that really likes to construct using 4 patches wherever I can, because to me it's just an easier way to put things together. It helps my brain to organize the material and the information. And so that's a nice way for me to manage everything that's going on here. Another way that you can do it is you can just go across. So if you know that you want your quilt to be, say you're going to do a wall hanging and you want it to be 3 feet across, you're going to want to have 6 of these units going across. And you can arrange them how you like, as long as you at least get a rotation to where your horizontal line butts up to the vertical. So that's what we're going for. So you could do a whole row across like that. And then the next row, you're just going to alternate. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, let's put these finished pieces to the side, and let's subcut some of the blocks from here, and then we'll take a look at what we can do in terms of pattern arrangement. All right, I like to use the rotating mat when we're getting into trimming down units, because I'm going to be able to take a little bit off all the way around. So I'm using my Creative Grids 6.5-inch square, and I'm going to line up. We want to make sure that we remove all of the selvage. And what I'm going to do is find lines on here and match them so that I'm sewing straight. So I've lined these up to this seam and more lines up to this seam. And then what we're going to do is to just bring up this long tail, just kind of fold it so it's out of the way, because we want to be able to take advantage of our rotating mat. We don't want to destroy the other stuff, the other part of the ribbon that we've sewn. Okay, so we're just going to now trim. And what I want to make sure of is that I've got room all the way around. And there is your first unit. And I always cut off from the end. I have enough leftovers in this strip set that I can afford to cut those little bits. And then I know I have it just right every time. Okay, there's that one. You will be able to get 6 units from one of these strips. I'm going to come over just a little bit more because this is the center line and the fabric has been folded for quite some time and they were just not coming out with the pressing. So I'm just going to trim that away. Really love these rotating mats. Anytime I'm trimming down square units like this, it's really nice because then you don't have to touch the ruler. You're just rotating your work. I love it. I find that my cuts, my units are so much more accurate. And then there's my scraps, and I'll just put those to the side. All right. I start where I'm going to start, and we'll just say we want this. And whatever you have on the right side is what's going to wind up being your center. So if you want it to be a dark, put the dark on the right side. So what I do is take block number 2 and I make it exactly like block number 1, and I rotate it 1 turn clockwise. Okay, and then I take the third one, make it just like block number 2 or unit number 2, and rotate it clockwise 1 turn. And then I will take the last unit, put it just like the third, and rotate it one crank clockwise. And then you wind up with this really interesting cross in the middle. I think that's really pretty. So that is an option. Let's see what it looks like if we put the light in the middle. So we'll turn this one this way. I love the geometry that's involved in quilting, because what we're doing is we're rotating on an axis, and that's how we get our shapes. And there you have that. So it's kind of up to you if you want the dark or the light. I might like the light in the middle a little better. That's your rail fence. So I do think that having 3 together is an easier way to approach this. So if I make it into the 4 patch, what I'm going to do is to put these together, and then I'm going to put these together. And when I press, I'm going to press towards the center, or the piece without the seams. I'm going to press that way. And you'll have nested seams, and then I'll piece these two together, and then I'll press the center seam open, and I just find that gives me the smoothest, flattest block. And then what I'll do is square it up with my 12.5-inch ruler, and we'll make sure that we've got our block just as it should be. Okay, I've got my top and my bottom pieced together, and where you want to be super careful is that center seam. So I have my seams going opposite directions so we can take advantage of nesting, but I am going to pin. Bring those right together. And just because we don't want anything to move, I'm going to pin. I always pin at the start, the middle, and the end. Okay. And we're going to sew our 1/4-inch seam down this way, and then we'll open it up, and what I'm going to do is press the center open, and I'll come back and I'll show you the completed block. Here's our completed Rail Fence Quilt Block, and you can see that all of the seams converge in the center just as they should. Here's the back, and I like to press that center seam open. I just feel like it really helps everything to lay more flat, which is the name of the game in a quilt block. We want it as flat as possible. And it just takes all the bulk, especially in the center. There can be a lot of bulk in the center. So there we are, all joined. If I put my 12-inch ruler over top of it, let's just see. And I'm right on the money all the way around. So that tells me I'm getting somewhere with my 1/4 seam accuracy. Maybe just a smidgen over here I can take off, but it's not enough to be concerned about. I love these Creative Grids rulers because it gives me a center measurement, and then it gives me where I line up all 4 of the seams. With the center, and then of course you have your diagonal that goes all the way through, and I love that because I know exactly where I'm supposed to be, and everything is spot on. So you know, these larger rulers, they are expensive, but if you're going to make a lot of 12-inch blocks, and honestly, that is a pretty standard size. It's worth having one in the size just so that you can really check yourself. Just make sure that you have your sizing just right. And if you do need to take a little smidgen off, you can take that little smidgen off and have your blocks perfectly sized. It's just going to help you in the long run when you go to put everything together. So let's see how it would look if we put the other one together. So if we were putting our 4 patches together, the way that you would want to do it is just like we did from the beginning, where the horizontal is going to butt up to the seams, to the vertical. And it would go together like that. And then if you did one more section like this, one more 4 patch, that would give you your full width of that 36-inch blanket we were talking about, or quilt we were talking about, which actually could be a really nice size for a baby's quilt. So if you did 6 of these units, yeah, 9 of these units, that would give you a baby's size quilt, which would be actually really cute. Now these colors are a little bit loud for a nursery, If we're going for soothing, I wouldn't say this is exactly soothing, but, anyway, maybe we'll go ahead and make one into a baby-size quilt at some point. But for now, we'll just use these as our samples. We still have 2 remaining, so let's put those together. So I have these blocks, and you can get scrappy, so you don't have to match everything. This is just one way of doing things. So let's say that we take these and then we put them together. So you can go in all different ways. And so we don't get that center design, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be there. Or we could, let's see, what if we did it this way? If you did this, then it still gives you that orange through the middle and the lighter on the outside. So that would be entirely up to you. That's just a preference type of thing. But, you can just kind of play. So you could also turn it this way if you wanted to. Whereas if you do this, then you're going to put all your lights in the middle. It's entirely up to you, which is what's so fun about quilting. Okay, that's it, you guys. That is our rail fence units. I highly recommend them. I've had a really nice time making these. Okay, that's what I have for you. Drop your comments below. Drop your questions. I'll do my best to answer them. And that is it for today. And I will see you around YouTube. And until our next visit, happy quilting.